Hi everyone, welcome to Get Candid, the show about overcoming the harsh realities of getting ideas out of your head and into the world. Let's dig into the creative minds of inspiring people who dare to lead and who are willing to get a little bit candid with me, your host, Clara Petz. Welcome to Get Candid with Clara Petz. Today I am very excited to welcome a special guest, Terri Petz. She is a phenomenal poet, artist, writer, as well as somebody who is in love with nature and is in love with the human spirit. We're welcoming her today to talk specifically about poetry. Now, a lot of people think that poetry is dead, but we don't believe that here, and with Terri coming on the show, I think she's going to debunk that theory altogether. So it's a really great honor to welcome this fantastic woman onto our show. Let's give a warm welcome to Terri Petz. Thanks. Hi Terri, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Have a seat. Oh, good. We like to keep it casual on Get Candid, so.
Great.
Great, welcome everyone. I am so happy to be sitting here with Terri Petz, our very special guest this week. Welcome to the show, Terri. How are you doing?
Good, thank you.
Good. I read somewhere that you're a nature girl.
I am.
And
yes.
is spring, what is right now is the most wonderful time in nature. Have you been getting out much?
Not as much as I would like to. Typically, I start swimming in the river in the beginning of May, but this year the season is a little slow. And I'm waiting for my opportunity.
Good. I also saw that you're a gardener.
I am. I have done professional gardening for over 20 years, and I still love it, but I can't do it as much as I used to, and I would like to. But I still do some professionally and of course around the house too.
Okay, well, the reason why I brought up all of your love and passion for nature is because as an artist, you're a poet, a writer, you also work in design. Has nature been an influence on your work?
Absolutely. And I guess I better start with my gardening career. It just dropped in my lap one day. Somebody needed to do weeding in their garden, and I didn't know one plant from another. But I felt so good every time I worked for the client, and I guess it helped that she had a beautiful garden, and her property was right on a lake. And I thought, maybe I could do this for a living. And I took some courses, and I got into it and really enjoyed it. And as far as the rest of my work, a lot of it is inspired by nature.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that you've written a couple of books. This particular book here is a piece of her heart. Is this, would you say that this is an ensemble of prose dedicated to love and the language of love?
No, it's actually poetry. And it's basically everything that I've written, or pretty much everything I've written, or all poems I've written between about 2000 and 2019 or 20.
Oh, so the compilation.
It is, and it is a piece of my heart, but also the title came because I wrote a poem to a friend who lost a daughter, and I called the poem A Piece of Her Heart. And I thought it was fitting to use it as not only the title of a poem, but also a title of my book.
I think it's very appropriate and a wonderful segue, because I know that often people say poetry is the language of the heart. Would you agree with that?
That's my motto.
That's fantastic. So knowing that poetry is a heart language, how do you as a poet connect with your heart or are able to listen to the heart?
It comes to me easily when I have the time for it. When I get into the rush of life, it doesn't happen.
Mm.
I get inspired by what I call the muse, and I had lots of conversations with the muse about when she comes and why she wakes me up in the middle of the night when she does. And other people struggle to get in touch with the muse. I used to struggle to keep the muse away and leave me alone to let me do the things I need to do.
That's great that you use the word the muse. Like, so what you're saying is that that's the name that you've given that creative voice in your inside your head, or
yes,
or that person that wants to get out from.
I guess it could be an entity. It could be an source of inspiration. Mm-hmm. Hard to tell what or who the muse is.
Well, I guess my next question would be: has the muse always been a part of you, or is it something that you learned to discover as you got older?
No, in many ways it has always been a part of me, even when I was young. And I don't hear voices, but there are things that have to be written, and they just pour out of me.
That's really amazing. Do you have a favorite place to write?
Nature.
In nature, yeah.
Nature gets me connected with my roots, gets me connected with my creativity, and gives me that space of, okay, I now don't have to do anything else. I can do whatever inspires me, whatever I want to do. And I can do that writing that might have been churning in my head for a while, but then I have the opportunity to actually focus on it.
Yeah, I appreciate that very much. I know as many artists sometimes go through periods where the work maybe doesn't flow out quite as easily. Has that ever happened to you?
Absolutely. With me, it happens when I have too many things on the go, mm-hmm. and I can't take the time to focus on the creative side. And you're a creative person, you probably know that the creative work takes total focus, at least for me, where I don't want to have to worry about anything else that's going on, anybody else I need to do anything for, where I can just sit down and let things work out.
Yeah, and let it happen.
Let it happen, yes. Exactly.
Have you ever had any feelings where you felt like maybe, imposter syndrome would be a good example, or felt like, oh, this is dumb, like, why am I doing this? Have you ever had moments like that? I mean, you've put together such an incredible body of work and are so prolific. I was curious if you ever have that go on for you.
I had a hard time not laughing, because yes, of course. I think the first time it happened is when I published the book, and shortly after that, COVID started, and I had this vision of having a book release party, and of course there was no book release party. We had to isolate. And I thought, oh, what the heck am I doing? Why am I doing this? But I just got used to the fact that I can't do things I want to do when I want to do them.
It's acceptance, yes. Do you have any advice for anybody who might be watching, who maybe might be considered a closet poet, who thinks perhaps their poetry doesn't mean anything or have any merit? Do you have any advice for them to be able to help push through those feelings?
Well, I don't know if my advice is good, but I would encourage everybody to keep writing. And as poetry and writing and any kind of creative work is a numbers game. The more you do it, the easier it is, number one. And the more you do it, the more you will produce some really good work. There will be some that are not going to be so good, and there's going to be some mediocre. But out of all the things people do, there's always something that's a piece that will help somebody, even if it's just one person. Mm-hmm. Because no matter what you write, it speaks to somebody.
Yeah, that's true. So I think that's actually really great advice is to just keep writing through all of your doubts and uncertainty. I think that's really fantastic advice. So I would love to talk with you a little bit about the event that you've started. I think you've done 37 episode or 37 series or events at the Owl. Can you share a little bit about the event at the Owl and how it all began?
Well, it was a bit of a funny way how it all started. I used to attend a women's poetry group hosted by my friend Kat Carrisage here in town. And about 6 to 8 of us women would get together monthly and do a poetry night where one person would present poems and ask questions related to the poems. And we would be doing some journaling or write a poem based on the questions. And I really enjoyed the circle. I really enjoyed the atmosphere. I enjoyed the poems that we read and shared. And June came along, and I think it's June when Kat stops the circles and then starts again in September. I thought, oh my God, I'm gonna miss poetry so much. I want to do something that keeps the poetry going. And I talked with a few people, and I believe it was one of the ladies at the downtown library who said, phone Steve at the Owl and see if he would want you to host some poetry nights there. And I thought, oh sure, I'll do it, and maybe we'll have a few friends get together. And I phoned Steve and talked with him, and he said, oh, would you like to make that a monthly event? And I thought, sure, I'll do that. Well, Ryan from Shaw Spotlight did a little teaser to introduce the concept to people and posted it on YouTube. And I put a bunch of posters up and approached some local media people and event people who host or at least post online events. And we had a pretty good turnout even on the first night. And then probably about 3-4 months into it, we had full house at the Owl. And we had more and more people coming, and we were just blown away by the talent, by the diversity of the people and the poems they read, and it just kept going since that.
It sounds like you're as surprised as I am to find out that there is such an array of people who participate, who write poetry, who read poetry, and who want to participate in the art. Were you how amazed were you at the turnout?
Well, even with the first one, I was amazed. But for the full houses, I was even more amazed.
I want to ask, because I know a lot of people might say that poetry is a dying art, that no one cares about it, nobody reads it anymore. Everyone's on Twitter and social media just using hashtags. Our decline in literacy and writing skills have produced poor and poor quality poetry. But hearing this story about the success of the open mic poetry night at the Owl, that really brings me a lot of hope and fills my heart that poetry isn't going anywhere, and that if anything, it might be growing. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you know, once you drive a red Ferrari, you see a lot of red Ferraris. So when I started my whole journey with poetry here in Lethbridge, I kept running into more and more people who were interested in it, who came to our events. And then during COVID, we did Zoom events. And of course, our group was a lot smaller. Instead of 20 people, we would have maybe 6 to 10 people. But we met people from all over the world: Malaysia, Yukon, US, different parts of the US, other parts of Canada, Eastern Canada. And then, of course, because I started to post my poems as well, and read other people's poems, I was immersed in it, and I don't think it's a dying art. I think it was a dying art maybe a few years ago, but apparently it's on the rise again.
I have also read similar findings. There was a study that was funded in the United States in 2017 that estimated 12% of Americans read poetry on a monthly basis, which is more than double from the same type of survey that was conducted back in 2015. So only in 2 short years, the volume of the number of people reading poetry had doubled.
That's awesome.
It is really awesome. I wanted to ask a little bit if you might want to talk about the importance of open mic night at the Owl. Have you ever had somebody come on to read their poetry where it might have been their first time ever reading for an audience?
Oh yes, many times. And I'm starting to have tears in my eyes thinking of the people. One of them was a gentleman who was in his 80s, maybe even his 90s. And he told me, I never spoke into a mic in my whole life. And I said, well, I hope you will. And he did. And he went on the stage and he read some poems about his late wife, who he loved dearly. And everybody was in tears.
Yeah, that's how moving poetry can be. That's why it's the language of the heart and why it connects with people. Because people, if you want to, like a lot of people say, there's not enough emotional connectivity or enough in the world, and poetry is a really fantastic way to connect your heart to the heart of others.
Absolutely.
Have there ever been anybody who's maybe gotten up on that stage and had some stage fright and wasn't able to go on with their poem? Have you ever had anybody get on and then run back off again because they were too scared?
No.
That might be me.
Nobody did that, but, and I'm so glad they didn't, because breaking through that fear, if they break through that fear, I think they can do anything after that. But what did happen to a lot of us, including myself, is that when we first got on the stage, we would be reading through our poems really quickly. Let's get this done as fast as possible, and then disappear into the crowd. A lot of people do that. And then at one point they figured that, oh, I can actually slow down and enjoy myself, and I don't have to rush through it. And I can take a deep breath and keep doing it and slow down and enjoy it. And that's what happens with most people.
Yeah, that is what happens. Good. I'm so happy that you're providing a space and have built a community that fosters care and nurturing poets to come on stage and share their work with others. I really think it's something that's very meaningful and so important for our arts community and for our community across the whole city. So thank you so much for bringing this to light and allowing people an opportunity to connect and share on a very deep, meaningful heart level. I know poetry is a very personal art form. And do you think that because it's so personal, that's what makes it maybe a little bit more challenging or difficult for people to want to share?
Absolutely. Because it is a piece of, as I keep referring to it, a piece of their heart or the work of their heart. I did have a few people who went up the first time, and then afterwards they said, oh my God, I feel like I don't remember the wording, but it was something like, I feel like I shared more than I should have. And I said, I don't think you shared anything that you should not have, but I hope you'll feel comfortable in the future. And of course, they just kept coming back. But for the first time, when somebody reads something personal, it can feel like they are just putting it all out there.
Mm-hmm. Well, it reminds me a little bit of Brene Brown's, dare to be courageous, right? Dare to be vulnerable. And that's a very important part of the human experience that we're often denied, or we deny ourselves that piece of human experience by not allowing ourselves to be vulnerable. I am speaking from a closet, from a perspective of a closet poet. I can't stand showing any of my vulnerabilities. And that's why I think for me it would be really scary to get up on stage and share my poetry with anyone.
That's too bad because
It is.
because the thing is that yes, some poems are very personal, but at the same time they would speak to people more than you would probably think, and but there is one thing, and I've learned that from Brené Brown, is you don't have to share your deepest secrets or whatever she called it. I think she called it your shame story with anybody. You share that with the people you trust. So my advice would be, if it's too deep and you can't share it with the whole world or anybody, then don't. Don't do it publicly. Share it with your best friend, or share it with your mom, or whoever you trust would not put it out where it shouldn't be going.
Yeah. It's really a poem is sharing an emotional experience or an emotional journey, and that's really also a common thread that connects us all together, is that we share the same array of emotions. And so being able to discuss what those are and being able to put words to them, I find that so freeing, because a lot of us don't always know what emotions we're feeling or how to describe them. And I think that that's actually a really healing benefit, or healing unintended benefit of poetry.
Absolutely. Can we cut for a minute? I need to clean my face up.
Yeah.
And I have a question.
So as it would happen, Terri has written a poem that might inspire a closet poet to maybe indulge themselves in breaking out. We welcome Terri to read her poem for us today.
To the anxious poets. You tell me about your anxieties, and I sense it in your voice, but look at you. You are up on a stage, telling your stories, reading your poems, bearing your soul to a room full of strangers. To me, that is bravery. To act on your desires, despite your fears and anxieties, is what brave, courageous people do. We all have our share of fears, and as Susan Jeffers said in her book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, the only way to get rid of the fear of doing something is to go out and do it. You did it, and you survived. Give yourself a pat on the shoulder and think of how brave you are when you feel anxious about anything.
That is magnificent advice to share with an anxious poet. Because it's true, you were scared, you did it, and you survived.
And I've seen so many people do that at the Owl. It's amazing. I stopped counting, but I think we have about 200 people who came and read their poems there. 200 different people, many of them returning.
That is so. It's just heartwarming for me to hear that people are wanting to come and listen and share and build a community of people who support one another in their poetry. Are there non-poets who come to the Owl too?
There are some people who just want to listen.
Yeah.
And of course there's the odd person who's just there and doesn't know what the heck is going on.
Yeah.
And in the beginning I always ask them if they're there for the poetry night, and some of them decide to stay even though they're just there to eat. And some people just have their dinner and leave. And some people stay to the end because they enjoy the variety of people to listen to.
Oh, yeah, I think that's fantastic. Before you read your poem, we were talking about how poetry connects us to our emotions and helps us understand what it is exactly that we're feeling, helps to bring words to them, because so often we feel our feelings, we don't even know what we're feeling. So poetry really helps to bring that out. And it helps also to get to know yourself and to really understand yourself in a new way. You had mentioned that you might be considering providing some type of writers or writing program. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yes, I call it Write Your Heart Out.
Write your heart out.
And so far, the people who read about my intro enjoyed it and found it also fitting. Because what I'd like to offer to, or what I am offering to people, and what I would like more and more people do is participate in these workshops or group readings or writings. And what I offer is workshops around writing about your feelings either in the form of a poem, a story, because not everybody likes poems. Some people like stories more than they like a poem. And some people like to write a letter to a person who hurt their feelings or offended them or did something awful that they might have not talked about before, but they have the need to write it out. And then other people just want to write for the pure joy of, hey, I love you and this is how I feel about you. So I think when you get into writing about feelings, anything goes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You've begun these workshops already?
Not yet. I started offering them just to a few people, and I'm hoping to do either my first group or one-on-one, because it could be either or.
Mm-hmm.
I am hoping to do it soon.
Oh, good. So how can people find out about what you're up to, and if they want to stay tuned or stay posted on what's on these workshops? Where can people find you?
One of them is on Meetup, and I started a Meetup group there called Write Your Heart Out.
Okay.
The other way is, and when you're on Facebook and you find me and my group and my friends who join us for poetry events, I call that page Tell It Like It Is Poets.
Okay.
Sorry, I had to think about it. And Tell It Like It Is Poets has everything on it. The poetry events, the open mics, we post poems sometimes, we post funny pictures that we find that's related to writing or poetry or art in general, because there are a lot of visual artists there too. And I think that pretty much describes where you can find my work and the writing workshops. I also have a website which includes a lot of things that I do, and that is called Works of Beauty, and the URL for it is worksofbeauty.ca.
Oh, beautiful. I love it. So to learn more about Terri's work, you can check out worksofbeauty.ca, and to learn more about the workshops, you can join Write Your Heart Out on Meetup, which is an app I am not familiar with, but I'm going to go and find out more about after this interview. So I appreciate that. And the other one is the Write Like It Is. Is that what it was called?
Tell It Like It Is Poets.
Tell It Like It Is Poets. So Tell It Like It Is Poets is another place where you can find out more about Terri and what she's up to. Could you tell everybody and share with our audience, hey, I want to get into I'd love the opportunity to go to the Owl for open mic night poetry. How does somebody do that?
Well, it's really easy. You don't have to pre-register. You just show up on the night of it at 7. Well, actually, it's better to show up before 7 now, because the spots are filling up quickly now. And it is on every 4th Wednesday of the month. It's actually tonight. Tonight is the 27th of May.
Yeah.
And next month we have it again on the 4th Wednesday of the month. It's always between 7 and 9:15, with much delay now because there's more poets than what we can squeeze into the 2 hours we have. But Steve usually lets us go over time.
Oh, good. Perfect. So the 4th Wednesday of the month, all you have to do is show up. How easy is that? Get your name on the list, and it's that simple.
Well, and some people show up and they think, there's no way that I will read my poems. And then they listen to others for an hour and they think, I can do this.
Oh, good. So through listening and the support of others, it helps to bring some confidence to you to go up on stage and do it.
Yes, and the environment I foster there is acceptance for anybody, no matter where they came from, no matter what their background is, no matter if they're an expert or a beginner poet. and no matter what they read about, because everybody should have that opportunity to express themselves.
I couldn't agree more. I'm so grateful that you're providing, like this night exists in Lethbridge, that it's just taken off in popularity and that it keeps growing. Do you think you would ever add a second night if it keeps growing the way it does?
I don't know. It's there's a lot of work in making it happen. But I am looking for people to help out and volunteer, and hopefully if I have a team of people where we can break up the tasks into smaller chunks, I could maybe do another night.
Yeah.
But right now it's enough to do one.
Yeah, good. Well, it's always good to leave them wanting more. That's good. Well, Terri, I wanted to invite you to play a game with me. I thought we would play something fun that I just created for you. It's called Poetry or Twitter, and I thought it would be fun. I'm going to read you a few words, and I'd like you to tell me if you think it's poetry or a Twitter post.
All right.
Are you into it?
I'm up for the challenge.
Awesome, I love it. All right, so our very first one on, sorry, I have to take my glasses off because I can't see. Our very first one reads, "To err is human, to forgive is my prerogative."
Can you read it again?
To err is human, to forgive is my prerogative.
I think that's to err is human.
To err.
Sorry, to err. Oh, that's so.
It's okay.
Can we? All right.
Do,
so
do we
to
not
err,
see the irony of
yeah,
that
right.
situation?
Yeah,
It's
there
because
is some
I feel-
irony, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. It's because I feel supported to err. That was my err.
That's just fine. I would say Twitter post.
Oh, ding, ding, ding. You got it. That is correct. It is a Twitter post. Very good. I love it. Okay, good. So I got one up here for you. May this be the day we come together. Morning, we come to mend.
Poetry.
That is correct. It is a poem. Do you happen to have any guesses who it might be?
No.
Okay, it's A New Day's Lyric by Amanda Gorman.
Oh, she is amazing.
And then she wrote that for, I think, one of the presidential inaugurations.
Okay, I watched that video a gazillion times, but I didn't remember the words.
Oh, no, that's okay. Great, I have another one. I became hopeful again as I awaken on this road where I formerly had fallen.
I would say it has to be poetry.
You would be correct. It is poetry. And again, I pulled from one of your interviews. It is by one of your favorite Hungarian poets, Miklos Radnóti.
Oh, he was my favorite.
As
Yes.
a child?
And he still is.
And he still is, yeah. I thought that was a beautiful line. I become hopeful again as I awaken on this road where I formerly had fallen. Like, that gives such confidence to walk the road again, or to go through the journey again, or to get back up and to keep going, right? It's very optimistic. No, that's fantastic. Okay, and I've got the last one for you. I am an air plant suspended only because you are the trunk I cling to.
It has to be poetry.
Oh, well, that was a little bit of a trickster one. It's actually a Twitter post by a poet. On the Poetry Foundation site. It's Donovan Kalep's, and I apologize if I mispronounced that one.
Thank you.
You're 4 for 4 on that one.
Well, almost.
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 No, I appreciate you playing the game with me. So, just as thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate having you as a guest and learning more about open mic at the Owl. And thank you for hopefully offering some inspiration for other poets to be courageous, and if they would like to share their poetry, there is a space for them to do that. And also kind of morphing that idea into providing workshops for people to be able to have an outlet for their feelings, and also to help with their mental well-being through writing. I think that's really magnificent. Now, before we say goodbye and sign off, I do have one little thing I like to do with each guest before we say goodbye. I don't know if you've ever seen Inside the Actor's Studio, but they finish off with 10 questions that he asks his guest So this is not my original idea, but I just love it so much. And the purpose of it is just to give the first answer that comes to your mind, and it's a nice way to get to know you a little bit better.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Okay, good. So, Terri, what's your favorite word?
I would have to go between love and nature.
What is your least favorite word?
I have to.
What turns you on?
Good company, good time in nature, good time with music. I love music.
Good. And what turns you off?
Human disrespect.
What sound or noise do you love?
The sound of birds when I wake up in the morning.
Oh, that's great. And what sound or noise do you hate?
Oh, I don't want to say this because Lethbridge people will hate me. But dogs barking for hours and hours and hours without a break.
I can relate to that. All right, what profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Oh God, can I give you a list?
Yeah, we'll just list off a couple.
Well, I tried a lot of things in my life, and I think everything I would want to do, I tried. But one I would like to get into even more than I have been before is acting.
Oh, very cool. I like that. So I must ask, what profession would you not like to attempt?
Being an electrician or a car mechanic. And the reason I say this is because I can do almost anything, but I refuse to do those two. Because I'm not good at it and I'm not willing to take the chance.
Very good. And the last question, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Welcome, my child.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your answers. I love that. We have something in common. My answer too for my favorite sound or noise is our birds in the morning when I wake up.
Aren't they amazing here in Lethbridge?
They are. Yeah, especially this time of year, all the birds have returned for summer.
Yes.
Yeah, all the songbirds especially.
Yes.
Well, you've been a magnificent guest. Thank you so much for bringing a copy of your book, A Piece of Her Heart. If anybody would like to grab a copy, where can they find it?
In a print form, it's available. People can buy it from me. They can buy it at Analog Books in town. They can buy it on Amazon, and in electronic form, it's available on most online retailers, from Amazon to Apple and Google Play and whatever else. The list goes on.
Great. Thank you so much, Terri. I appreciate the gift. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in to our episode with Terri. And hopefully we'll see you at Open Mic Night Poetry Edition on the fourth Wednesday in June. Great. Thank you so much, Terri.
I'd love to see you all. And thank you for this wonderful opportunity. And it's been really a pleasure talking with you. Made my fears of speaking with people go on front of a camera go away.
See, you did it. You were scared, you did it, and you survived.
Yes, I survived.
Excellent. Good. Thanks so much.
Thank you.